Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. The RTX 2080 Super has been out for a little while now, and we've got a little bit of a better understanding of where this card should sit in the market. Now that the 2080 has been discontinued, does the 2080 Super look more attractive now than it did at launch? I'll let you guys decide. But with all of that said, MSI sent over their RTX 2080 Super Gaming X Trio for our PAX build, so I decided I might as well get some use out of it before it goes into a show build, and I'll probably never ever see this GPU again, let's be honest. So yeah, let's keep this video short and sweet and see how the MSI RTX 2080 Super Gaming X Trio performs in our regular suite of gaming benchmarks. Let's do it. Let's talk about how we're testing this. We're using our GPU test system, which is running the Gigabyte Z370 Aorus Ultra Gaming with the i7-8700K and 16 gigs of XPG GAMX D30 at 3200 MHz. We included some other cards that we've recently tested to give the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio results a little bit of context. Wow, that's a bit of a tongue twister of a name. Now, we don't include 1% highs or lows with these tests because for us, it would just introduce a whole lot of extra testing, and I personally feel that getting an average frame rate gives you a good indication of expected performance anyways, because these are like a certain type of benchmark. Now let me just talk about this because I feel like I haven't talked about this a lot lately. We used 3 different benchmarks, all that use the GPU in different ways to see what the performance looks like in different situations. We use these benchmarks for every single GPU benchmarking video, so you can go to any of our GPU videos and compare that GPU to this GPU. We like to use testing that is repeatable and standardized and not gameplay testing because those results can't be repeated and they just have too many variables. We want the only variable in our testing to be a GPU, not a section of gameplay on a certain map. I know many people don't like the way that we test this, but to be honest, it's accurate and it's repeatable, and yeah, it also gives you peace of mind. With that said, let's start off with our first benchmark, Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark. Now this benchmark is baked right into the game and gives you a good indication of how the game will perform on your system. This benchmark gives us quite a few metrics, so if you were to run this on your own, you could see all these extra numbers, but we're only going to be talking about the average frame rate with the GPU. For the 1080p test, we saw the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio get an average score of 131 frames per second. For the 1440p test, we saw the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio get an average score of 111 frames per second. For the 4K test, we saw the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio get an average score of 63 frames per second. Let's move on to Unigine Superposition. For the Superposition test, we performed 3 tests in total. We used the 4K optimized preset, the 1080p extreme preset, and a custom 1440p preset with depth of field and motion blur turned off. For the 1440p custom test, we saw the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio get an average score of 149 frames per second. For the 4K optimized test, we saw the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio get an average score of 72 frames per second. For the 1080p extreme test, we saw the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio get an average score of 55 frames per second. Alright, these are the last batch of tests. We used the Final Fantasy 15 benchmarking tool. This is an updated version of the tool that includes all of the fancy new stuff and stuff that we don't need to use, and it's way more optimized, and this is a lot more accurate than it used to be. Okay, for the 1080p test, we saw the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio render a total amount of 11,564 frames. For the 1440p test, we saw the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio render a total amount of 8,719 frames. For the 4K test, we saw the 2080 Super Gaming X Trio render a total amount of 5,125 frames. Based on those results, the MSI RTX 2080 Super Gaming X Trio is looking like it's on par with the Gigabyte RTX 2080 Super Gaming OC within that margin of error. I think the difference between these two cards is you're paying around 50 Aussie dollars more, or around 20 to 30 US dollars on top of the Gigabyte version for RGB. So if you're into that, I would probably say buy the Gaming X Trio. I've spoken to a lot of people who've bought this GPU just because of the lighting, It's not something I would personally understand, but I ain't hating. Different strokes to different folks. If you like RGB, then I would definitely recommend this GPU because it looks really nice. Cooling wise, while running all of our testing, the Gaming X Trio maxed out at around 68 degrees on our open air test bench in our climate controlled environment, which has an ambient temperature of 18 degrees Celsius. We set the card to the automatic fan curve and the fans ramped up to around 60%. The card was loud, but not loud enough to be annoying. If the card was inside a case, I think it would have been a lot quieter, but yeah, there was no coil whine. Usually MSI cards have a little bit, but yeah, I mean, like every MSI card we've ever tested, and we've tested a lot, usually have, yeah, a tiny bit of coil whine. But yeah, I didn't sit around testing thermals or acoustics because of an open air test bench. And since you guys always ask about that stuff, I just thought I'd quickly mention it anyway. The MSI RTX 2080 Super Gaming X Trio is going for around $930 US or around 1,350 Australian dollars at the time of filming this video. There is a link in the description if you want to grab yourself one of these cards. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you don't like this video, you know what to do. Tell us what you hated about it. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peak, we seek. And like I mentioned right at the start of the video, this is the GPU that we're using in our PAX build this year. Yeah, I wanted to test it because the PAX build isn't a PC we get to keep. We don't get to keep any of the hardware, but I do get to build it. So yeah, that's why we're doing a test on it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Ugh.